BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. BlackBoxNed88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And welcome to BBOR, the home of true crime talk radio and your premier destination for unsolved mysteries, criminal psychology, and exploring the dark side of cyberspace. My name is Ned DeHaan, and I am your host, as well as the creator of AstroPsych 400 here on YouTube, and regular contributor to the Zodiac Killer channel. And a great way to support these shows is just by listening to some more content. But you can also go over to Amazon.com and have a look at the book Killer on a White Horse, written by me, Ned DeHaan. It is a novel, murder mystery, inspired by the Zodiac Manson connection, but it is indeed fictional. However, who doesn't love a good mystery? And there is always the TeeSpring page. Feel free to check out some of the merchandise. And remember, being weird is not a crime. Let the show begin. Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to this special weekend presentation of Black Box Online Radio. On the weekends, I've been doing a regular segment about the murder of JonBenet Ramsey from 1996. And this episode has a few different purposes. The first is I'm making the announcement that there will be a new book discussion on the weekends about The Death of Innocence, the book that was written by both John and Patsy Ramsey. And I also found that there was a video that was done on the Nancy Drew channel. That's a true crime channel that I watch and listen to very frequently. There are a lot of videos out there about some other true crime cases that I follow, particularly the Zodiac Killer. And I also wanted to respond to some comments that were made in that particular video. And I invite you to like and subscribe to the Nancy Drew channel if you're curious about true crime cases, as well as this one, Black Box Online Radio, of course. But if you do watch the video about the death of innocence on that other channel, it is more or less an introductory video. It covers the first 6 chapters of the book, and it's rather similar to the book discussions that I do here on BBOR, where it's not about analyzing the writing style and the paragraph structure, or they're like, well, this idea could have been clearer if it had only been phrased with a different amount of syntax and punctuation markers or something. I don't really get into that type of thinking. What I do with book discussions is I am more or less just thinking, these are some ideas in the book that stood out to me, and I want to respond to them. And the most recent book discussion about JonBenet that I was doing on this channel was about Presumed Guilty by Stephen Singular. And I think that I was disappointed by that book because I had a very high expectation for it. In fact, somebody flat out asked me the question, if you could read any book about the JonBenet Ramsey case, which one would it be? And I said Presumed Guilty by Stephen Singular, that was supposed to talk about how there could have been a sex ring that was involved with the death of JonBenet Ramsey. And I just thought overall the presentation in that book didn't achieve anything for me, really, but I have some episodes about it here on this channel under the name Guilty, the Story of JonBenet Ramsey, and parts 1, 2, and 3, as well as a Q&A session. But with the death of innocence, some people might be thinking, why on earth would you be doing a book discussion about the death of innocence? I mean, this is something that's written by John and Patsy Ramsey, and some of you guys in the audience, in the comment section, listening to this here on YouTube, are simply going to say, there's no reason to do a book discussion on something written by JonBenet's parents. They are liars. There's a very high chance that they were involved with the death of their daughter back in 1996. And I'm approaching it with an open mind, and the true things that I want to look at are there ideas in this book that do not make sense? Are there ideas where it sounds like someone is trying to cover up a lie? Are there explanations that are going to be provided that are reasonable, and it's just going to be approaching everything with a clean slate? and not really having too much of an expectation when I go into this book discussion, because as I said with the last one, I mean, I was really expecting to be blown away by facts, and that just didn't happen in Stephen Singular's book. But I also confess that this is somewhat of a personal ambition for me. I've always wanted to read The Death of Innocence by John and Patsy Ramsey because it's ever since I first learned about it, I wanted to hear their full take on the subject. And if anyone would like to help support these efforts and support this program, you can do that by hitting the like button, subscribing, sharing on social media, as well as going over to BuyMeACoffee.com. There's a link to that in the description box. BuyMeACoffee.com allows you to make a donation or contribution to help support the show. BuyMeACoffee.com/BlackBoxNid88. But the easiest way to find it is in the description box here. And anybody who makes a donation or contribution will get a shout out on Zodiac Monday. And I would like to switch gears a bit and talk about some of the content that was found in the Nancy Drew video on the Death of Innocence. And as I previously stated, talking about the material from the first 6 chapters. To recap, JonBenet Ramsey passed away in December of 1996. She was found dead in the basement of her Colorado home by her father as well as another individual named Fleet White. She had been struck on the top of the head with a blunt object, and she had also been choked or strangled, maybe strangled is the best term, with an item that has simply been referred to as the garrote. The garrote was made from materials in the Ramsey household. There was also a 2.5-page ransom note that was saying that JonBenet was going to be killed if the Ramseys didn't come up with $118,000. The ransom note was written from a writing pad in the house, and there was also written with a pen or marker that was from the Ramsey household. Everything that was involved with the murder was from the Ramsey household. Now, does that make the Ramseys look guilty? And by the Ramseys, I mean John Ramsey, the father, Patsy Ramsey, the mother, and Burke Ramsey, JonBenet's brother. Does that not make them look guilty? I mean, it's possible, however, I'm definitely not convinced that intruders simply just have to bring their own things, that they have to carry their own items. In fact, I also think that that is almost acting like criminals play by the rules. And this is something that I talk about on Black Box Online Radio all the time. We cannot have the expectation that criminals are going to follow a rule book. Criminals don't follow the rules, they break them. That's why their activities are illegal. That's what criminal behavior is all about. But there are some oddities in the behaviors of the Ramsey family, John, Patsy, and Burke Ramsey. One thing that has been brought up by you guys in the comment section a lot that I haven't talked about too much on the channel is that after the Ramseys came home at night after a Christmas party, JonBenet is supposedly gone to bed, as well as Burke, and the Ramsey family goes to bed for the night, and Patsy Ramsey did not change her clothes or makeup. She was wearing the same clothes and makeup from the night before. I mean, does that not suggest that she was involved with some type of hysterical and frantic activity or some type of devious and criminal activity? And, I mean, it's very abnormal, especially for the fact that they were supposed to be traveling shortly after the Christmas party. And from the Nancy Drew channel's review, there was an explanation that was provided, and that was that their shower was broken, that the shower that Patsy Ramsey regularly used was broken, and that's why she decided to stay in her clothes. And I think that that is a little bit 50-50. I mean, I've known people who might do something similar to that, and I say might because I'm not even 100% sure, but I think it's within their realm of possibility for their personality type. I I mean, did she not have any other fresh clothes or something? That's the explanation, that the shower was broken, so she didn't change her clothes. I don't know about that one. Again, that's from the Nancy Drew channel. responding to the book, and I'll read the book for myself and get a better take on the subject. But according to the review, there's also a clarification that Patsy Ramsey did indeed do her makeup again in the morning before she discovers the so-called ransom note. So that would be a little bit of a misrepresentation that she was wearing the same makeup as the night before. And there's also something that was brought to our attention in the video on the Nancy Drew channel, and that is that John and Patsy go on CNN, and they do a very famous television interview. And John Ramsey is talking about loss and suffering, and what he says is that he had lost a child previously, and that's actually not Patsy's child, but from his first wife, that she passed away. So he lost one child, and JonBenet was the second, and that he said that JonBenet would never have to have the experience of losing a child on her own. She would never have to carry any burdens. And what the Nancy Drew channel proposed was that is just such an odd thing to say, because normally somebody would be talking about how their child who has just passed away would not get to experience things in life. Oh, she'll never graduate high school. She'll never have children of her own. Instead, what John Ramsey is saying is that she'll never have to carry any burdens. And that's almost sounds like what a guilty person would say if they were either trying to cover something up, or they're showing that they are sad that she is gone because of their own guilt, and, well, she'll never have to carry any burdens. I mean, I completely follow that type of thinking. I absolutely follow that 100%. I mean, that's what I would more normally expect. However, I mean, anything is possible, and people do grieve in different ways, and they were still in the grieving process. I mean, they did the television interview. Oh, let's see, what was that? I'm just trying to do some fast math. What that would have been 10 days, or was it 8 or 9 days after JonBenet had been murdered? So I think that we can analyze language like that, and that's definitely going to be some of the stuff that I'm going to be doing in the future book discussion on the death of innocence. And you may have noticed that there's also been a graphic for the book The Other Side of Suffering by John Ramsey going around on the screen from time to time. And I also have a copy of that one, and I'm going to be looking at some ideas that are shared in that book. And as I understand, that book is mostly going to be about dealing with loss and emotional trauma. And I just simply am curious what I'm going to find in that. So the plan for the new book discussion is I'm actually going to be reading both books kind of side by side, a little bit from here and a little bit from there. But I'm really looking for these clues that the Nancy Drew channel was zoning in on. Or are these people telling us a story that doesn't make sense? And I think that that's a very good way of pointing something out. But I'm going to be very honest with you guys. In the previous episodes on this ongoing series, I've stated that I did not think that any of the three Ramseys in the house that lived were guilty, John, Patsy, or Burke. And I've talked about how I thought that an intruder killed JonBenet in the past. And then people propose other suspects to me. Oh, what about John Ramsey's other son, John Andrew Ramsey? What about Fleet White, the friend that is with John Ramsey when he finds JonBenet's body? And I want it to be very, very clear. When I've talked about an intruder theory in the past, I am simply saying any person that is not John, Patsy, or Burke. And a lot of people will disagree with me on that. There are quite a few of you guys in the comments section who state that they think that Burke Ramsey was responsible. There are lots of you guys who think that John Ramsey was responsible for the murder of his daughter. And then there are people who think that there's a combination of both ideas going on. And I think I saw this written out by the owner of the Nancy Drew channel. And he stated that he thought that John Ramsey was responsible for the garrote and Patsy Ramsey was responsible for writing the ransom note. And I think that that would mean almost certainly that one of them was covering up for the other. Most likely that Patsy would be involved with the cover-up because I've said this once and I'll say it again. JonBenet was struck in the head with a blunt object, and she would have passed away from the head wound by itself. But what truly killed JonBenet Ramsey was the strangulation. It was the asphyxiation from the garrote. And this is why I've never liked any of the theories about how they think that, oh, there was an accident in the Ramsey household, and then one of the people in the household made the garrote and tried to stage the scene. I mean, that they would actually strangle their own family member to death to cover up a murder. I mean, like, when she wasn't even dead. I just can't conceive of that. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense to me. This whole thing about the Patsy Ramsey theory where she smashed JonBenet's head against the bathtub faucet and then made the garrote and well, the garrote is what killed her. I think those people are simply under the misapprehension that the head wound was what killed her. Or I mean, there's so many variants of this stuff out there that it goes back to what Lou Smith's granddaughter said very clearly. If someone is going to accuse John, Patsy, or Burke Ramsey, their theory is just somebody gave JonBenet a ding on the head too hard, and they made this ridiculous story to cover it up. Now, the Ramseys are very suspicious, and one thing that I'm noticing, even after just going through the video on the Nancy Drew channel, is I'm probably going to find that their behavior is going to be even more suspicious. And that is specifically what I'm looking for. And as I said, I'm going to approach it with an open mind. So you're going to hear me in the book discussion, most likely going back and forth when I'm going to be saying, okay, this is something that I think is very significant and it states something that makes them look guilty, and this is something that makes them look innocent, and this is something that I'm quite unsure about, because I think with an unsolved case that is appropriate. Otherwise, it's just cherry picking to get a desired result, and that is not acceptable when it comes to evidence. I mean, maybe the prosecutors are going to do that, maybe the defense attorneys are going to do that. Well, I'm not them. I simply want to look at the narrative that has been presented and more or less trying to call bullshit when I see it. But there are other books that I would like to read about the JonBenet Ramsey case, and in the future, I'm really tempted to do a full book discussion on Little Girl Blue by Sweetie B. There was a very engaging YouTube documentary. It's a user-generated documentary made about JonBenet based on the book Little Girl Blue, BLU, no E at the end. And I've talked about that one a lot, but that's just the documentary version. I would actually like to go through the book step by step, and I had the opportunity to correspond a little bit with Sweetie B, the author of that book, but I think she has moved on and didn't want to get too much into the JonBenet case, or at least not with me for an episode of Black Box Online Radio. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And if there are any books that you would like to hear about for the JonBenet Ramsey segment, or any other documentaries, episodes, pieces of writing, theories, anything, I mean, you can put your idea in the comment section down below, and perhaps there will be an episode done on that particular topic for this weekend segment. And last week, I did an episode about the suspect Edward Wayne Edwards in the JonBenet Ramsey case, and he's a very unlikely suspect, but that should give you guys some awareness that almost anything is fair game, almost anything under the sun or in the darkness, because if there's a ridiculous theory out there, I'm simply going to state the reasons why I think it is ridiculous. So do not hesitate to propose something. Hey, what do you think about this other wild, crazy idea about the JonBenet Ramsey case? I mean, put your idea in the comments section down below, and I would love to read your comments and messages and what you have to say. anybody can write the show at BlackBoxOnlineRadio at AOL.com. You can also get me on Facebook. My personal Facebook is in the description box. And there was always BlackBoxNet88 over on Instagram. And I will see you there for the bonus podcast. Until next time.